We are live. Welcome everyone to ACDE number 199. Bunch of minor but important Pectra updates today. So we'll catch up on Devnet 4, but then also on a bunch of different changes to EIPs. So hopefully can close out the subgroup check conversation for EIP 2537. Felix had two PRs to 7685 he wanted to discuss. There was a minor change proposed to 7702, and then I wanted to do a last check on including 7742 as per the last ACDC, and Kajinder has a small modification for this as well. So we can chat about all that, figure out how that would look for Devnet 5 spec. And then aside from that, there was this conversations around validator bandwidth that we never quite got to on the last ACD, some stuff around the gas limit, and then the ETH APIs. And yes, the 200 celebration would happen right before DEF CON. So yeah, we can celebrate that at DEF CON. To kick us off, I don't know, do we have Barnabas or Perry to talk about how Devnet 4 is looking?
Yep, I'm here.
Yes.
So last week, Friday, we have started Devnet 4 and we have shut down Devnet 3. Since then, we have had a pretty good participation rate. We have a few clients that are still having some issues. Hopefully, we can get some out on them. So clients that are known not to be working are currently Aragon and Ethereum.js on the execution layer side, and Grandine seems to be the one that is still struggling with a few clients. But they are now also proposing some blocks. So it seems to be a bit more intermittent.
Sweet. Anyone from any of those teams want to chime in with some more context? Oh, Ethereum.js looking into it. Okay. Any other updates on Devnet 4 that anyone wanted to bring up?
I have started the bedblock production again this afternoon. Only with a single node for now, but we'll grow that into like 3 or 4 different nodes later on.
Anything else on Devnet 4? Oh, Grandine solved some of the issues yet. The other one should be solved soon. Nice. Anything else on Devnet 4?
Not for me.
Okay. Next up then, BLS. So there's been a lot of conversation around potentially removing the subgroup checks, splitting out the subgroup checks. Over the past week, a couple people have reached out to different L2s and other potential users of BLS, as well as investigated the libraries themselves. I don't know if we have. Does anyone want to give an update on that, either on the side of the community outreach or the actual libraries?
I can give an.
Yep.
Oh, it's working. Yeah. So on the decision, it seems that we're moving towards just having the subgroup checks in. One reason was that one of the dependencies, it's pretty hard to see it's pretty hard to get good confidence on what will happen if it's removed. And it's pretty hard to read. it seems like from our outreach that the ZK Snark folks, at least the ones we reached out to, aren't sort of like saying we want this is the best way to say it. Some of them have infrastructure in that makes it pretty hard to switch away from BN254 to BLS 12381. So I'm not sure what the use cases for this precompile are. I mean, there are possible use cases, but it doesn't seem to be like the ZK Snark folks at the moment.
Thanks. Anyone else have context on that?
Yeah, I could add a little bit. Essentially, yeah, I think the investigation Kev was talking about was really helpful because it does sound like with this dependency BLST, it's like not clear what happens if we don't have them, the subgroup checks. So we'll go ahead and keep them in. That gives us like a pretty stable, interface now to proceed with like final gas benchmarking. And then separately, yeah, we can keep thinking about different use cases and reach out to like different community members to try to get a sense of like, yeah, the expected use of this thing once it's live. And yeah, it's a thread that can keep running even over the next like month or two. But yeah, I think we're unblocked at the moment, which is good.
Awesome. And on the benchmarking, I know it's been a couple of weeks since I followed up there, but my sense is we still didn't have quite consensus on what the right price for a subset of the calls should be. Is that still correct?
I think we do now with the subgroup checks in.
Okay.
I think it was to just a 2x the current costs.
Okay, so like the original proposal of adding a factor of 2 on the discount table for those calls.
Yeah, I believe everyone was on board with that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I fully agree with actually this one because seems this original gas cost doesn't fit like the shape of the curve we think, and we just try to use something that wasn't a good fit in the beginning and like multiply by 2. But I think we can like spend next week to like figure it out exactly how this is supposed to work, and if the other people will be in favor of the original proposal, I'm also okay.
Yeah, I think there's probably value if you want to spend a week or so looking at a better proposal. Yeah, we should, I guess, yeah, we should ideally have a final merged gas cost scheme in the next week or two, so that we're not blocked on that to launch future devnets.
Sorry, what was the issue of the 2x? Is it just that it's like not exact enough, Powell?
No, it feels to me that we start with some like, I don't know, like lookup table that wasn't good in the beginning, and we just keep the lookup table by just multiplying everything by 2. In the same sense, we can just create a new lookup table that actually fits the our timings more closely. I mean, it's the kind of the same amount of benchmarking work. It's not like so clear that you multiply by 2, but it just puts new numbers, and maybe it's not even needed a lookup table anymore. And so that's what I mean exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
When we were benchmarking in Besu against NARC, we found that we were using the 150% proposal, not the 2x. And we found that even with 150%, the G2 was way overpriced, G2 MSM. So if we 2x that, I think that's going to get even more overpriced.
Oh, that makes sense. Sorry, I thought everyone was sort of in agreement, but yeah, it seems like we need to redo the numbers from scratch then.
If we were to do that, yeah, Powell, what's like the timeline that you'd expect here? Is this something that you can benchmark in a week? Do you need client teams assistance?
Yeah, I don't know, but it feels to me that it's kind of the same amount of work. We just put different numbers in the end. And
Well, I guess, yeah, like one part I'd want to be sure on is like what's the flow here where my sense is when we did the 2x proposal, every individual client team ran those benchmarks on their end. So I assume here there's like some work of proposing a curve or like a like a lookup table for prices and then having clients confirm that. Is that correct?
yes, I think what happened is that with 2x, like everyone is within the safety margin, right? So the worst case out of all these lookup table numbers, it's fitting like the expectation. But there may be some outliers in the other side, like in the other places that makes them like maybe too expensive. I don't know. Um, to my understanding, GNARC implementation is hit by the subgroup checks more than PLST, at least what I get from data I received. So it's a bit it's more on the GNARC side, unless they can fix the performance in the implementation. I think it's a bit more on their side to propose the numbers. If they think like 2x, it's like great, I will accept that. But so I don't think we need to take the pre-assumptions from 4 years ago when trying to find the good gas prices. It doesn't save you any work if you just take this yeah this like original work in gas prices from 4 years ago. We can just put new numbers and it doesn't make all this process take longer. The longest part is just to do the benchmarks and collect data.
Okay. Is that something you have the bandwidth to take on and that other teams can assist with?
I don't know. I need to. I mean, I can plot the data if I get one, but I don't think I will be able to benchmark every client. So
Okay. Yeah, I think
I
if
think we need to figure out how to exactly do this.
right.
I'm not like great at this actually, but if there's no one else, I can actually do like similar spreadsheet I did some time ago.
So I think maybe what we can do then is we have the testing call on Monday. If all of the client teams can make sure to send someone there to who could help with the BLS benchmarks, and Pavel, if you're able to attend that too, that would be great. And we can, yeah, zoom into that discussion on Monday and make sure that we have a plan for benchmarking this.
Okay, I'll try, but I think Monday is quite busy for me actually.
Or I guess, yeah. Sorry, Kev. Yeah.
So what exactly is needed here in order for us to reach a decision? Is it just some set of inputs and then we just show what the timings are? Because I think a bunch of clients have already done that.
Correct. Yeah. So we had the clients do this with the 2x proposal. So what we need is what's arguably a better proposal than the 2x and something that I guess is more like a granular, like yeah, a granular repricing per call, and then having the clients rerun the benchmarks on that hardware, or sorry, on those numbers.
Okay, I see. And Paolo, you're saying that the benchmarking process is the hardest part? Because I think we don't need you to actually do that since you've already
Yeah.
done it for EV1. We just need the clients to do that. Okay.
Yeah, I think if Powell can propose a set of numbers like a lookup table, and then the client teams can benchmark that, we should be good. And so we can, yeah, so I would suggest like sorting out the details of this. We can use the R&D Discord. But then on Monday, if we can, yeah, check that we have everything sorted, that would be great. And if you can't make the call directly on Monday, Powell, if there's a way for you to share like async, either a proposal or like what's needed for a proposal, that'd be quite helpful.
Okay. Okay.
Cool. Anything else on BLS? Okay. Thanks everyone. So yeah, we'll move forward with that. And again, we'll keep the subgroup checks as part of the EIP. Next up, Felix had two PRs he wanted to discuss for EIP 7685. Is Felix on the call?
Yes, I am. Can you
Sweet.
hear me?
Yes, we can. Yeah, I just posted your first PR in the chat, excluding the empty requests data in the commitments.
Let me just quickly explain. So basically, I am proposing this because we noticed during the implementation of the Devnet 4 changes that it's very inconvenient for the ELs to have empty value of the empty value of the request hash depend on which fork is currently active. So for example, this is if you initialize a new chain and at the Genesis block, the fork, like the Pectra fork is active, then we need to compute the empty request hash in the Genesis block. And with the current Devnet 4 definition, this is basically the request hash with 3 empty requests lists. And but in a future fork, this might change. So basically, every time now, it's just going to add a whole bunch of code to the Genesis block initialization, where we have to figure out like the like empty requests. And then more generally, like, I mean, there are certain cases where you want to produce blocks just for testing purposes, but there's not going to be any kind of CL. So it doesn't really, it's not really necessary to bother with the request at all. And then it's like, it's just nicer if you just hard code this empty value there. Like that's the main motivation, honestly. And yeah, that's only possible if it is not dependent on the fork. So this is where the proposal comes from. And I mean, the corresponding change in the engine API, I only propose it just because we feel like it's much easier if there's a canonical sort of requests list that is shared both on the engine API and that's also used for the commitment. Right now, we already have this bifurcation of the commitment and the engine API. I personally think it's quite bad. So basically, we have to. What happens is when we compute the commitment, we have to add these type bytes for the request. But then in the very last minute on the engine API, the type bytes were removed. And so this already means right now that we have two different representations of the request list. One which is only for the commitment and one which is only for the engine API. And so I'm just proposing to make these two the same again by also removing the empty request from the list which is shared on the engine API and adding back the type byte.
Thank you. Anyone have comments, thoughts on this? Okay, Reth is in favor. I know Teku, I think, approved the changes as well on the PR directly. Ethereum JS is in favor. Does anyone, I guess, disagree with this change or have like significant concerns?
I'm pretty sure if I had proposed it on the ACDC next week, there would have been some backlash because it does mean that the CLs have to add one more check, which is that they have to now validate that the request items are given in strictly increasing order, just to ensure that, for example, because with the type byte, it again introduces an ambiguity that wasn't there before. However, I do think it has minimal impact, but it does have some impact on the CLs. So maybe someone from the CL side should speak up and, I mean, I think it's a minimal impact, but it definitely has an impact on the CLs as well.
Any CL dev on the call have strong opinions? Okay, so Lodestar should be okay. Lucas from Teku had already +1'd it. So my sense is we can probably go ahead and include these two PRs as part of the DevNet 5 spec, and aim to get them, oh, they're already part of the DevNet 5 spec, awesome. Yeah, and aim to get them merged by next week's ACDC, and if there's any CL level issue that comes up, we can address that on next week's call. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Felix. Anything else on this topic?
Well, not from me.
Okay, moving on then. Next up, we had a proposed change for 7702. So I haven't quite followed the conversation on this, but supposedly it was due to some back and forth on ETH magicians. Yeah, I don't know, does anyone have context on this PR to remove the delegation behavior of EXT code? Opcodes?
Yeah, just quick context.
Yeah, yes.
So 7702 currently introduces a new type of account that can change its code hash. This is currently somewhat possible if the contract has delegate call, and since the delegate call changes, only if it uses in the same transaction as creation. But this is kind of a strictly new kind of way of changing the code hash, because it can happen even if the code doesn't include self-destruct, even if the code doesn't include delegate call. So it weakens the guarantees that one gets from looking at the code hash of an account if a contract relies on that to trust the way that the account is going to behave. It could be vulnerable because it's able to sort of temporarily masquerade as a different kind of contract. So it does seem like something that we should look into. We found a couple of code samples that appear to be affected, but nothing really too serious. But we haven't really done a thorough search. So the proposal here is to only delegate code execution. So ext code hash and ext code copy would just act on the delegation designator instead of kind of following the delegation pointer. That seems just sort of more normal, in line with what an EVM proxy is, and so it just seems like it would just be less surprising in terms of the effects on applications.
It should be noted that the code hash will still change, though, right? Like if you change the delegation, you will have a different code hash anyways. Or is the code hash going to be reported as the hash of the delegation, or?
Do you mean after this proposed change?
Yeah. So
yeah.
just,
So
you were saying.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you were saying that basically the point of this is to ensure the account cannot change its code hash unexpectedly. But I think if we don't do the delegation, we still have to take the hash of the delegation code. Yeah. So that basically means we still have, you can still change the code hash of the account with 772.
Yes, that's right. So there's a stricter version of this proposal, more conservative, which is to do kind of like EOF contracts and just look at the prefix, so it wouldn't change as you say. Although in this case, if it does change, it would at least not correspond to different code, because the delegation designator is not valid code, right? But it is another option that I would also be open to considering.
Yeah, I thought we actually have a proposal in EOF that says any code that starts with 0xEF is immediately forbidden for looking at. Isn't that the case?
From executing.
0x. Yeah, but also like from being introspective. Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, you cannot look it up. It will just behave as some sentinel value. So
so it only returns 0xEF basically.
Yeah.
So maybe that's what we should do for the delegation as well. But then it's actually worse, because you don't even know it's a delegated account. Basically, you don't know anything about the account And maybe that actually makes the problem worse.
Well, so Ansgar is saying it's EF00, and in the case of delegated accounts, it could be EF01, which is the prefix. So that would allow to distinguish. But I don't know that making that distinction is important.
Well, I mean, the contract could kind of know that it's a delegated account and then like reject interacting with it, for example. So that would be the main advantage here, just being able to detect within the EVM that the delegation is active for this account. And then you could be like, I'm not talking to that account because it's a delegated one. That's certainly something, but the contract would have to be aware of this concept anyway. So it doesn't apply to the old contracts because they don't know anything about this. It's like that would be a new security pattern that you have to introduce into your very important protocol, like basically ensure that, this is just fallout from 7702 adding so much new attack surface.
Daniel?
So just one problem I have with this proposal is that right now all the opcodes that interact with code, like the call or exit code hash, are completely oblivious of code delegation. They just get the code of the target. If we do this change, the code delegation is not transparent anymore to the EVM because we need like two ways to retrieve code. One that follows the delegation for calls, and another one like in the proposal X code hash, and the others that don't. So this breaks a bit the assumption of 7702 that EVM in the end does not have to be aware of it. Also in the future, when we introduce new opcodes that interact with code, it might be a bit error prone because we have to be careful which of the two ways, in case of 7702, we use to retrieve the code. So that's like my one doubt about this change.
Got it. And yeah, Ansgar, do you want to talk about the EOF style behavior you brought up in the chat?
No, I'm actually not 100% sure. It could be that you have actually only returns the kind of 0xef hash as the magic kind of hash if you try to code inspect it. I think if that's the case, we should probably revisit this now that we actually reuse the 0xef domain basically for other things other than UF. But what I'm saying is there would probably be value in having if we want to just return a magic byte, which like a hash of a magic kind of prefix or something, as the response now in the 7702 case as well, which I personally think would be just another principled step towards kind of like getting rid of code inspection. And then I think we should make sure that it's not the same kind of magic hash that we use for UF, because I do think there's value in being able to distinguish those two cases. And they're also conceptually not the same.
Right. Yeah, I guess it still feels like there's some discussion to be had on this to actually understand this sort of second order impacts and like, what it would look like implementing it in the EVM. What's the right way to like move this conversation forward? Is the ETH Magicians thread sufficient now? Do we want to have a breakout on this in the next week or two?
I would love to just hear from some more DApp developers. I am weakly in favor of this change. I guess, it's to me, it's pretty much okay how it is, but it's also okay to change it. I don't think that this is not something I'm super worried about, but if there are more examples that could motivate changing the behavior, like I'm open to hearing them. The ones that I've seen are pretty contrived examples.
Thanks. Guillaume?
Yeah, if you're looking for an example, it's not a dev developer example, at least not directly. But when it comes to any stateless gas cost model, if you have to do a jump to a different location, you're going to potentially incur a significant price for opening a new group. And what happens in that case is that some operation that you think is pretty cheap because it's just checking the code hash is going to have a jump to a location, open it, and pay maybe like 1900 gas, like 21,000 extra gas. That could be surprising. That could be breaking some contracts that expect Xcode hash to be fairly cheap. So yeah, just for your information, that's going like doing it the current way is going to have an impact. Returning a default hash lets us just go to the current header that we already know about, and that's pretty cheap. So yeah, in terms of gas, this could introduce a very surprising, significant cost in the future. So I'm in favor of this proposal because it would keep the fairly cheap price that we expect.
Wait, why is it that cheap though? You don't know if it's going to be warm or cold, right? The account that you're
No,
Xcode sizing.
you're going to call, right, that's true. But I mean, instead of being warm once or cold the once, it's going to be warm and cold twice.
Yeah, I mean, the same order of magnitude, and people need to be writing contracts to deal with changes in gas costs. Like we could easily just say in the future that this needs to be twice as expensive. So I don't really see that as that compelling either.
Yeah, Frangio, I guess, do you have a sense of whether there would be concerns of using the sort of hard-coded return value like Ansgar was proposing? Or, yeah, do you not have a good
I
feel?
don't have a super strong opinion, but do you mean like if there was a way to tell apart that an account has been delegated?
So more that like, yeah, instead of returning the delegated account, we just return like a magic byte like 0xEFO1 for any attack.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I think I do agree that in the past we would like we've said we want to move towards less introspection, and that feels like a clean way to move a bit further
Totally.
that direction. But yeah, I don't know. Was there a use case to actually return the delegated or the delegator account?
There are certainly use cases one could come up with, but I think
Not a critical, yeah.
yeah, and nothing that exists already.
So I think if that's the direction that like I don't know, this group feels weakly in favor of, then maybe we should modify this PR, have a hard-coded value returned, and then try to get a last round of feedback from application developers on that before DevNet 5. Cool.
That sounds good. I can make the change.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Yeah, so let's do that. And then once you have the PR open, just send us a ping so we can tentatively add it to the DevNet 5 spec as well. Sweet. Anything else on this topic? Okay. And then next up, so EIP 7742 on the CL call last week, we seem to want to move this to the fork to separate the blob count from, to have the CL drive the blob count. So I guess, and then, sorry, there was a proposal by Gajinder to change this. He opened a draft PR for it. So I don't know, Gajinder, do you want to maybe give a bit of context on your draft PR?
Yep. So basically, with 7742, what will happen is that CL will send the target, and which can basically change theoretically block to block. And so the way this impact the fees, the way this impact how fees calculated on EL is that we have basically an excess gas accumulator, and where we calculate, where we accumulate some deltas on each block, how much it's below the target or above the target, and then use it to calculate the fee with the in a way that so we have an update fraction, which basically makes sure that the factor by which the fees goes up and down, by which basically this delta affects the fees is less than 1.115 because excess gas by this update fraction is exponentiated. So the problem with a dynamic target is that this you can't basically you don't have a constant update fraction. So what this EIP does is it normalizes the delta against some target and then accumulates it, and then there is a normalized update fraction that is used to exponentiate and get the gas cost. So everything else stays the same, but now when you are calculating the excess gas, you are basically calculating a normalized excess gas, and so which is basically target, uh, which is target minus gas used by the target times some constant factor, and that factor we have chosen arbitrarily. So that factor could be chosen up or down depending upon how large or
Hey,
small we want
Gajinder.
this number to be.
Gajinder, your mic is a little hard to understand. Maybe move a little bit further back, or I don't know if you could switch to another mic, if possible. If not,
Is it okay now?
just some feedback.
It's not great, but yeah, maybe.
All right. So yeah, basically that describes the change. I was almost done.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that's yeah, we can somewhat hear you now. Anyone have feedback or thoughts on this change? I know it's been I think the PR was opened yeah, just yesterday. So any comments, thoughts?
Yeah, so I mean, I think the main thing to do today is just to move this to SFI so that, we have it. There is this question. I think the issue that Gajinder's pointing at is that the base fee adjustment constant doesn't it's hard coded essentially for the fact that we have 6 blobs, and so we'd have to change it eventually anyway. And then this is just now figuring out the right way to make it flexible enough under 7742, so everything works nicely. Yeah. So I mean, I think we can iterate on that, but then separately, we do want some blob increase in Pectra, it sounds like, and this is required.
Right. Okay. Maybe yes, to flip the conversation around. Does anyone on the EL side have a concern with moving 7702 to Pectra as it exists today? And then maybe we can take some more time to review Gajinder's proposal in the next week or so. Last call. Okay, so let's move 7742 to Pectra. I'll make the change right after the call. We can yeah, have an async conversation on the PR that Gajinder put up, and then hopefully resolve this by next week's ACDC. And yeah, Barnabas is asking if there's any client implementation started for 7742. I guess not much. Oh, Ethereum JS and Lodestar have PRs in the works. Basis should be ready by the end of next week. Okay. Prism is in the work. So, okay, some clients have started. Sweet. Anything else on 7742? Okay. And then lastly, Devnet 5. So we had a couple PRs today that we decided we're going to add. It seems there's still issues with Devnet 4. Yeah, do we want to spend at least another week working on Devnet 4 and revisit a final Devnet 5 spec in the next week or two? Okay, I have a +1 from Barnabas. I think we'll move forward with that. And yeah, I think the only PR we mentioned today that is not tracked there, doesn't exist yet, is the change to 7702. So as soon as we have that, we can include it to the Devnet 5 spec. Okay, anything else on Pectra before we move on? Okay, then next up, wanted to touch on the validator bandwidth point that was brought up on the last call and we didn't quite get to. I don't know, is Ryan on this call? If not, I can just share his questions. I'll just post the agenda link in the chat as well. But yeah, quickly, so the first one was giving the emerging importance of validator bandwidth in driving real-world disaster contingency planning for the validator set. How do we feel about the existing scope and rigor of bandwidth research? Are we doing a great job? Can we close the gap? It occurs to him there's at least two different research areas, research into internal bandwidth dynamics of the protocols and client implementations, and research into the external bandwidth supply available across the world, and how that's expected to grow, expand, how it changes in different parts of the world and whatnot. And he links an ETH research post with some more like tactical versions of this. Yeah, anyone have thoughts, comments on this? Okay, if not, yeah, I will point people to the ETH research thread and we can continue there. I know there's already some responses by, I believe, some Lighthouse folks around what's happening on the client side. Yeah, so we can continue the conversation on ETH research. And next up, Julio had a proposal for the gas limit EIP that we discussed a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, Julio, do you want to talk about EIP 7790?
Yeah, so first of all, if possible, I would like to give a little update on 7783, just from an implementation point of view. So right now, I was able to implement it into REF, Aragon, and GAF, and that works. I know Nethermind also planned to do an implementation, but I don't know if they actually did it, but I think they did. So this is just an update. Then regarding 7790, I did some asynchronous coordination amongst clients, and it seems that I was able to kind of come to I think I was able to kind of come to an agreement for agreement across the clients, across most people at least, on the actual guidelines. So the guidelines I came up with where was basically a target of 60 million gas over 2 years, and I talked this with Nethermind, and they were fine with it. Aragon is fine with it. I went to GAF, and Peter told me that there is no reason not to increase it. At least that's what Peter told me. Yesterday there were some concerns from Bezu. I haven't heard nothing from RAF yet, but I think, well, I think, but I didn't really heard, but like at least from a technical point of view, it seems that there is really no reason not to increase it. I think, at least after discussing it, most people agreed at the end of the day, right? So. Yeah, there were some concerns from Bezu yesterday, but I hope they're cleared. So, I mean, I think we're kind of also ready to kind of at least take a decision here because, I mean, seems that at least the majority agrees. Maybe Nethermind can confirm, or if Peter Zilag is on the call, he can also just confirm. I don't know if he is, but yeah.
He's not. He's presumably not on the call because he's on holiday. But I can, like him. We discussed that in a stand-up, and I confirmed that he agreed.
Okay. So what about Nethermind? Just so that we are sure that you're also on board. Is there something from Nethermind?
There's a comment in the chat from Ben that saying Nethermind is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
And okay, and based on they had some concerns yesterday. I hope they are cleared. Yeah, and what about Ref? Because I heard nothing from Ref. If they have an opinion or not an opinion.
Are we talking about including this in Pectra?
No, it's not an hard fork. It's like you can include it also a bit afterwards. So like it's not an hard fork. Like the AP is not an hard fork, so you don't need to include it in Pectra.
Right. It's like the default behavior that you'd ship with the client, which also doesn't have to be the same across clients, right? Like,
yeah.
I don't currently have an opinion on this. I don't know who you reach out to, but I haven't heard anything.
Okay, and yeah, so regarding the biz, okay, so there are some hands. So who wants to start?
Yeah, maybe let's do light client and then we'll do Enrico.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think my general feeling on this is that we have some work that we need to do around history, and we haven't completed that work. And it feels very weird to sort of skip over the thing that's kind of necessary to just do a very easy change to the protocol and increase the footprint of clients. I would really like to see some progress on 4.4s made before we talk about increasing the gas limit.
I mean, yeah, but at the same time, regarding history, and I already kind of talked about it a lot, is that even if you don't commit to it, so first of all, this is a very easy change, yes, and it can be implemented in less than a day. The testing is really trivial to do, like it's just tracking a number. So I'm just gonna say that out of the way. And the other thing is that regarding history growth, if you choose not to do it, you're gonna end up with hitting the 4 terabyte mark for comfortable validator running in the same amount of time, pretty much, right? It doesn't make a difference. So, I mean, if it's just, I mean, I don't know, I know that for you it's just kind of a preference because you feel it's lazy, but from a practical point of view, there is, I think, objectively no difference whether you do the gas limit increase or not. So, yeah. So, okay. Anyway.
Let's maybe do Enrico and then Ben.
If I'm not mistaken, we send gas limit as a configuration for the proposer through the MEV boost when we do proposer registration of the builder network. So it's just a comment that if this happens, then this interaction must be changed, and it's kind of static, and the way it works.
No, not really. Well, not really. I mean, after all, you can still suggest it, and if you don't specify, the builder is going to use whatever they have, which is likely going to be
that's true.
Makes difference in that perspective, honestly.
It was just a comment that says there is an interaction. It's not pure EL thing. There is an interaction with the way CL talked to the builder, and we have to do some consideration there.
Yeah, but yeah,
it's minimal, but it's something that we need to care about.
Okay.
Thanks. Ben?
With regards to history growth has slowed from blobs because a lot of the data is now going into blobs rather than into cold data. Also, the way it increases linearly over 2 years means the average increase over that entire period would be only 15 million. So that's the impact you've got to think about rather than the end impact. And I hope progress has been made on 4.4s by then, and also that we've included the cold data increase. So I mean, if cold data goes into Fusaka maybe takes 6 months, say, then it's only gone up to 37 million gas by that time, for instance. It's not, it's not a straight shot to 60 million. And we can also halt it at any time.
Can I also add something really quickly? Because I see some people here in the chat says that basically that basically the impact after shipping it is not strong. Well, the thing is that actually at the beginning I heard way higher numbers from people, not 60 million. At the beginning it was more close to 90. The reason why it's 60 is because we would like first to merge KIPs before actually making it more significant. But since 60 million is a start, why not? And also it's just a better way to increase the gas limit. So yeah, like objectively, it's a better way to increase the gas limit. So I don't really. So the 60 million comes actually from. So 60 million is just it just comes from basically it's something that clients think they can handle. I mean, the ones I talked to, that's what you think they can handle quite well. That's where the 60 million comes from. And but if it weren't for some things, it could also be 90. So in reality, in the future, it's probably gonna go up with the QAPs being merged. So yeah. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, let's do Stokes and then Marius.
Yeah, I mean, I think you might have just touched on my question, but I do wonder where the 60 million number is coming from. Like, did we just decide to double where we're at now and then go from there?
Yeah, basically, so basically, kind of yes. And we basically, first of all, we kind of tried to go for multipliers. I mean, I worked also with Nethermind, and we first, it was, we went for multipliers. So the first multiplier was like 90 million because there was some consensus between Aragon and Nethermind that 100 gigabyte of state graph was the max they would allow. Then we basically said, no, okay, wait, but maybe there are some other things that might get in the way. Maybe we should actually wait for some KPs to emerge. So we actually just say 60 million. And 60 million is actually very conservative. It's very slow increase. It's low impact immediately, but it's, yeah. And just one thing, actually, and actually one other thing, I want to just also say add some more things so that I am seeing. So the testing, I saw somebody talking about testing, why testing is for this AP trivial, like it's just tracking a number. Like you basically set a bunch of flags on a devnet and you just see if the number goes up. It's really, and it's deterministic. So it's not, there is almost no unknowns there. It's just like, it's easy to implement, it's easy to test, it's low effort, and it's okay. Yeah, so yeah. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to raising the gas limit, but I would want to see like a more rigorous analysis around all of the various considerations before picking a particular number.
Yeah, and 60 million is just what I mean. I can tell you that Aragon can definitely do 60 million. I mean, the number seems to indicate actually quite potentially I mean, there are numbers. It is actually based on numbers. Like it's not like just taken at random, just out of multipliers. It's actually based on number. So then the main reasons is kind of that we put 60 million was the cold, because we're doubts about the cold data and some opicals who don't scale very well. That's the TLDR from that perspective. But yes, it is of course not just taken out of my head and just put it there for fun, right? Anyway.
Yeah, and I think just communicating, again, with more data and your analysis and thinking would help people get more comfortable with it.
I mean, I wrote some blog posts. I also wrote like an entire analysis on Verkle, and yeah, You can go check it out. I posted it on Discord. So yeah, I can share it with you later.
Marius?
Yeah, so I think we are again having two debates at the same time. One debate is whether we should increase the gas limit and whether we should, or maybe we even have three debates. Whether we should increase the gas limit, whether or what the good gas limit should be, and the other debate is like about the mechanism of increasing the gas limit. And while I agree that we should increase the gas limit, I am not knowledgeable enough about whether whether 60 million is a good number to land on. I think there needs to be more research, and we made some numbers, but the problem is a lot of the worst cases grow exponentially with the amount of gas you have in a block, or at least quadratically with the amount of gas that you have in a block. So we need to have a lot of we need to really make sure that it works. And the other thing, the mechanism for it, I just don't agree with. I don't think we should do these gradually increases. I think we should do steps of 1 million or 5 million gas or something. Do a step, everyone decides that we should do a step, and we will ship the next client version with this step as the default. And most people will update. So the gas limit will be raised gradually to that next step. We will see how it works. And then we will make a decision on the next step. I think this automatic gradually increase is just it's not great. It would, in the case that something happens, and this is 60 million is not it just doesn't work, and we see it breaking. Then we would need to do basically an emergency release of all the clients to vote on the gas limit again, and I don't think that's good. So in my opinion, we should do bigger steps and have time to evaluate the impact of these steps.
Yeah, I mean, the gradual increase is just better because you don't need to coordinate, right? Like what you're saying, yes, we do it in steps, but then you need everyone to upgrade, and it's hard to measure. It's objective, just hard to measure, right? Doing in little steps also takes time. It takes iteration time. It's inefficient from a management point of view, and also the 60 million is kind of researched. Like it's not like, as I said before, it is kind of research. It's not like I just took it out of my head. I discussed it for like an entire week with Nethermind. So it's not like something we just came up with in our sleep, right? There are actual numbers behind it, and also 60 million is just, and also 60 million over 2 years is just really small. Like it's just kind of just to start something, right? And it's easy change. But anyway, yeah. Anyway.
Okay, let's do Guillaume and Ben, and then ideally wrap up. Like again, I think there's clearly different opinions on this. This is not something we also need like full consensus on. While it'd be good to have like rough alignment, we can have different teams. Test different things on their clients. Guillaume.
So it's just a remark on the Verkle document, and it's entirely my fault that this got published with this mistake. Like Julio, you asked me, does the proof size increase logarithmically, which is what your document says, and the proof does increase logarithmically, but the witness increase linearly. So I think we should actually do some more, dimensioning or whatever, checking that's doubling the gas doesn't make the witness larger. Yeah, I'm sorry for the miscommunication.
Okay. Anything else that hasn't been brought up yet? Okay, I think we can continue these conversations, I think. Yeah, and again, like, while it would be ideal to get some consensus on this, it's also not something that like requires a hard fork or that core devs effectively control at the end of the day. Yeah. Okay, last thing we had on the agenda for today, again from Felix, so adding official revert error codes for all of the APIs in, I believe, the engine API. Felix.
No, it's a different one.
Okay. Yeah, so I put up the PR in the chat. Yeah, do you want to give some context?
Yeah, so this came up pretty suddenly. So we have received this issue multiple times over the years that people have complained that there is no standard way to get access to the revert data when accessing contracts using the ETH call, ETH estimate gas, or ETH create access list operation. And so, yeah, we would like to basically introduce our way, the way we've been handling it in Get, as sort of like the official one. So, and in Get, we have this like error code 3 that we use for this purpose. And yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. For us, it's the most important thing just to have a defined error code and just basically ensure that all the clients behave the same way. Because right now, in a lot of the client libraries for the RPC, you have these huge kind of function with different, like matching different behaviors of the APIs, matching on error messages and so on, just to figure out if it's this error, and then somehow trying to extract this data from the error in some way. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I'm also open to having a different solution, but I mean, for us, it's the easiest to propose the one that we use already. And yeah, I'm just open to hear like what other people think.
Yeah, I think from Besos side, it makes totally sense because this is something I wanted to do recently, basically comparing the results, the outputs from Geth and Besu on ETH call. And I had this issue because we have different returned codes and basically payload. Yeah, it was very hard actually to do the comparison. So yeah, I am totally in favor of it. Just I was wondering why we would not have a code that is similar to what we have currently in the engine API, something around minus 32,000. Currently in Besu we return minus 32,000, which is basically a server error when we have this kind of error.
Yeah, so I can answer this. I think it's kind of a common misunderstanding that JSON RPC error codes must be negative. So basically, there's absolutely no need for the error codes to be negative. It's just that the JSON RPC specification, you've predefined certain errors, and these predefined errors are not taken to, like, they don't have to be used for everything. But for some reason, in Ethereum, we have always only used the errors which are predefined by the JSON RPC specification. But in fact, they made these negatives so that you have the full positive error code range available to your application, which Ethereum is. Like, Ethereum is an application of JSON RPC, so we have all the positive numbers available for our use. It's just that we, for some reason, only use the error codes that are in that spec. And the error codes that are in the JSON RPC spec are only, most of them are for internal use by the JSON RPC subsystem itself. So basically, the most error codes that are defined by the JSON RPC spec are just used to notify the client that their request is malformed in some basic way or something. And then the server error that we use for most things is just, it's like the generic error code, like the generic server error in HTTP, you know, like you can use it, but it's not descriptive of the actual error.
Okay. Any other comments on the proposal? Okay, maybe, yeah, we can have another couple teams have a look, and if there's no objections, we can move forward with it. But yeah, we can probably continue this async.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Felix. Last thing I had on the agenda, so on last week's ACDC, we agreed to cancel the Awkward Devs call during DEF CON. I would suggest probably canceling the one after as well, as a lot of people tend to travel back or take time after the week, and we'll have a whole week of people being together. Any objections to canceling the call on the 21st, or any strong preference to instead cancel the one like before DEF CON? But right after feels like it's probably the right timing. Okay, no objections. So we'll have ACDE number 200 right before DEF CON. Oh, actually Barnabas is opposed, right? Anyone else in Barnabas?
Yeah, we need to ship, man.
Yeah, so exactly. So I'm keeping the call before DEF CON. So we ship before, and then we ship at DEF CON. I think this is the right call. And we get the 200 before DEF CON. Yes, so we have the call on November 7th. Yeah, of course. So we have ACDE on November 7th, ACDE on November 7th, ACDC on November 14th. Or no, sorry, ACDE on November 7th, no ACDC on 14th, no ACDE on 21st, and then back on the 28th. Yeah. And Marius will be here at 14 UTC. Okay, Marius and Barnabas. Does everyone want the call on the 21st? We can keep the 21st if people feel strongly about that. Okay, more 21st. Okay, bunch of people want to keep the 21st. My proposal then is we should probably merge the testing call. So we usually have the Monday testing call. That would be on like the on the 18th. So keep that together and have like maybe an informal call for whoever's there on the 21st, but cancel fully the 14th. Okay, and Barnabas might also do the testing call. Great. Anything else people want to discuss before we wrap up? Okay, then I think we can leave it at that. Thanks, everyone. I'll post a summary shortly on the Discord, and talk to you all soon.
Take care.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Everyone.